Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kimutai. I'm a mediator based here in Nairobi. People usually ask, what is mediation? And I thought I'd try and explain it in a way in which many people can understand. So, in order to make it simple, I really have to start off by telling you what people say has defined mediation. So, I took the two quickest mediation results on Google search. One of them is, of course, Wikipedia. And I'd like to go through it for a bit just so that you see what we're tackling here. It states mediation is a dynamic, structured, interactive process where an impartial third party assists disputing parties in resolving conflict through the use of specialized communication and negotiation techniques. All participants in mediation are encouraged to actively participate in the process. Mediation is a party centered process in that it is focused primarily on the needs, rights, and interests of the parties. The mediator uses a wide variety of techniques to guide the process in a constructive direction and to help the parties find their optimal solution. The mediator is facilitative in that she or he manages the interaction between the parties and facilitates open communication. Mediation is also evaluative in that the mediator analyzes issues and relevant norms, while refraining from providing prescriptive advice to the parties. For example, you should do this or you should do that. So that's a Wikipedia definition, and as you can see, it's quite a bit to unpack. But we haven't even finished. I'm going to give you a definition provided by a website called Find Law, which I think generally gives you an idea of if you really want to try and define something, go to the lawyers, see what they say. So it starts. Mediation is a procedure in which the parties discuss their disputes with the assistance of a trained, impartial third person who assists them in reaching a settlement. It may be an informal meeting among the parties or a scheduled settlement conference. The dispute may either be pending in a court or potentially a dispute which may be filed in court. And then cases suitable, well, that's a long list of different things which mediation can be involved in, right? So blah, 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 blah. And then attendance at the mediation conference is voluntary by the parties except where governed by statute or contract clause. So that gives you an idea about what people think of as mediation or how they define it. And I'm not denigrating anybody's particular definition. It's just that sometimes you need it explained in a simpler way. I remember when I first came back from university and I was starting my practicing in law by being a pupil. The pupil master got annoyed with me because he kept saying, look, you need to make your English understandable by the client. And it was a lesson I learned and I took forward. So as here in Nairobi, we say we don't want kizungu mingi, which is a way of saying we don't want a lot of English. We want to understand what's going on. So I'm going to go back to the early one, which is Wikipedia, and break it down for you. And that way, you might understand what mediation is. If you're like a lot of the people who says, look, I don't want words, I want to know how it works. There is another video I'm going to do, so you just head over that side and you will find how to or how it is done. Meanwhile, if I'm explaining what is mediation and you're still with me, please listen. So it says mediation is a dynamic, structured, interactive process. Dynamic means that it's not fixed. It's not like court where you have a rule and regulation, you have to produce documents a particular time, you have to file things. No, it's dynamic. It can change according to the circumstances. At the same time, they say it's structured. What that means is that it's not something where you walk in the door and then you decide what you're going to start with. The trained mediator has a structure to the process of which you start off with engaging the mediator. And that is a process which I'll explain further. But it is a structured engagement. It's not something where the person just walks in and makes it up as they go along. So, dynamic and structured. It has a process, but it can also flow to fit with whatever the circumstances are. All right. Interactive. Basically, it means it's not like something where somebody gives a lecture like this, where I'm telling you blah, 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 and at the end of the day, you can't get back to me. Though you can make comments down and I'll look at them. Word of advice, if it's negative or it's intended to elicit a response from me, you won't get much out of that. But if it's an actual query where I think it has some substance and I can actually answer it, I will go ahead and do that. All right, so it says interactive process. You and the parties and the mediator are all talking to each other. We're an impartial third party. This is the mediator. He is not taking sides. That is the essence of mediation. If you have a system like we have with the Kenya Revenue Authority here, where the person is employed by the actual government, and then he tells you he is going to be a mediator, he is not. He, at the end of the day, is there at the behest and working for the government. He is not a mediator, he is not impartial. So, impartial third party. So, it has to be impartial, it has to be somebody who is not employed by the people who you're working with. We're disputing parties in resolving conflict through the use of specialized communication and negotiation techniques. As a mediator, I trained, and we trained on many different ways of relating to the clients and relating to specific circumstances. And these are all an art in which you decide what is most useful at this particular time. You also have to learn how to de escalate situations. You also have to learn to analyze what is the actual core of the problem which these people are trying to deal with. And that is why it has specialized communication and negotiation techniques. Of course, the more skilled the mediator, the better they are at working on that. So then, next phrase, all participants in mediation are encouraged to actively participate in the process. We don't want people who will come there and sit down and not say anything. I'm not saying you have to talk all the time because there are those people. But what I mean is that you have to participate when you're asked and you have an opinion and it's bearing on what you're trying to settle. You need to be able to engage. And then mediation is a party-centered process in that it is focused primarily on the needs, rights, and interests of the parties. Party-centered means you are the one who is getting the issue settled. It has nothing to do with the mediator. You are in charge, and you are the one who actually says, this is what I'm thinking of, this is where I'm willing to make a concession, this is where I think I am correct and I deserve ABCD. So it is party-centered. It is not driven by the mediator, it is not driven by a court, it's not driven by the law. It is driven by the people at the table who have the dispute. Right, then the mediator uses a wide variety of techniques to guide the process in a constructive direction and to help the parties find their optimal solution. What happens is that when you're engaged in a dispute with somebody, there's a lot of A, emotions, B, facts and figures, C, concepts about whether or not you're right or wrong, which generally have an impact on the way you relate to the person who you're in the dispute with. The mediator has to find a way of allowing you to engage and put your points forward without getting bogged down in the nitty gritty of, oh, it's your fault, no, it's my fault, etc. So that is what a mediator, a skilled mediator, is able to do. They're able to make you sit down, bring forth your arguments, and also sometimes where it's not necessarily an argument or a logical point, it's an explanation about why things are the way they are and why you have reached the stage where you have a dispute. So the facilitator, mediator,